Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage, and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. Discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, with free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland. A devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus, a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing about being a member is the inspiration with the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I can shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to SAA headquarters here in Newark, and hello to everybody at home. Can everyone in the room wave behind them, please, to everybody? Marvellous. Thank you very much. You are very welcome to this workshop that we're running here. So I've got an audience in the room, and I've got you lovely people at home as well. Anybody's got any questions, please shout them out. And at home, if you have any queries at all, then don't forget to just use that box at the bottom of your screen to pass your questions along, and we will answer them as we can. Got a selection of materials in front of us today, so we are combining a little bit of watercolour, a little bit of brusho, and a little bit of pen work, hopefully, if we get time towards the end of the workshop. But what I thought I would do is just check that we've all got everything in front of us, and then if you're painting along at home, then you can check that you've got the right materials in front of you as well. You at home, of course, have the massive luxury of being able to pause it, go and find it and come back, but we can't do that in the room. So can I just check that you've all got a drawing board of some description and a piece of the SAA's practice paper somewhere on that drawing board? Looks like this piece that's going on here. I think Gary and I did a marvellous job this morning of checking that everybody in the room had it. Hopefully as well you have two pieces of paper, one which is a colour version of the photograph that we are working from, and you should have my line drawing that I've put together for you too. Has everybody got that? Marvellous. And also you should have a piece of trace down, which is this funny looking grey stuff, which I will explain more about in a moment. It does transfer onto your hands, so just be careful, but it is only graphite. It's not going to do you any harm whatsoever. Also on your tables, you should have 3 or 4 pieces of kitchen roll. Don't use all of the kitchen roll for mopping up. You are going to need 1 piece of kitchen roll for an alternate job. So just make sure if anything befalls you, just keep 1 piece to one side. But if you run out any time we have got extra up here, please just shout. You should have a spray bottle, some sort of pot with some water in it, a magic sponge, just in case. I'm sure none of you will need it, but I will talk more about that later. Between two, you should have a couple of little pots of what looks like some sort of spice. It's not for your lunch. It is your brusho. And there should be one that looks vaguely dark blue and one that looks like a sort of mid-brown, sandy kind of colour. Hopefully everyone's got that. You should have a paper plate, which we're using as a makeshift palette, which should have 3 colours squeezed out on it. One which looks like black, but it's actually called transparent grey. That's an SAA watercolour. One that is cobalt violet, which is sort of a pinky mauve kind of colour, which is also an SAA watercolour. And you've got a small amount of white gouache as well. Again, I will describe more about that. My only little word of warning is as we go to make kind of sloppy mixes, try not to let it run into your white gouache. So keep your plate so that the white is at the top and the other colours can run at the bottom. Also on your table, you should find a biro. Terribly important part of the kit today. You should have a pencil, a grey sketching pen, which looks like that, which some of you may not have come across before, a black stripy yellow pen, and then 4 brushes, 3 which have silver handles, and you're going to actually use for painting. So the SAA's finest nylon brushes, which are the brushes that I use an awful lot of the time. And then what we lovingly describe as a ratty old brush, which is going to be the thing that you use to distribute the brusho today. So has everyone got everything that they need in the room? Fabulous. Excellent. Good start. Hopefully at home you've got everything, but if not, obviously you can pause it, run and get it, and come back and join us in a minute. So let's get cracking. Up on the easel, just to my left, you have the version of the painting that I did about 18 months ago and was featured in the SAA's Paint magazine, and uses slightly different techniques to the one we're going to use today because, like many subject matter that artists use, you kind of fall in love with the subject matter and then you find different ways of reimagining that painting. So that one was done using ink and watercolour. But then, of course, not that long ago, I discovered the marvel that is brusho, and that powder that you can sprinkle on the paper and you can get it to do all sorts of marvellous things. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a more abridged version of that one, and we can experiment with brusho and see how we get on. So shall we get cracking? So put your colour image just to one side for the moment, and you're going to need the line drawing. And may I suggest that you get yourselves a little bit of framer's tape or masking tape. You won't need very much, a couple of inches, and humour me by sticking it somewhere about your person first, just to pick up a little bit of lint, so that when you use it to stick down your line drawing, it doesn't transfer too much onto the paper. I'm going to put my line drawing into the middle of my piece of paper, and we're working obviously portrait today, and I'm going to hinge it at the top. That line that's come out right along the top of your line drawing isn't important. It's only the window part of it. So just give it a little hinge at the top. Try not to stick it across the corners if you can, because you're going to want to be able to lift this piece of paper up and pop it down. So just hinge it like that. Pull your boards towards you if they are a little bit further away. They do move. They're just on a rest, so just pull it towards you. And then you should find it a little bit more manageable. Okay. And then underneath that, you're going to pop your piece of trace down. Now, we could spend a long time this morning looking at how to draw architecture, how to put a realistic looking window down onto our piece of paper, but I want you to get to the fun bit. I want you to get to the painting part of it. So I've already done the drawing for you, and all we're going to do is transfer it onto our watercolour paper. So we're going to use trace down for that. I don't know if any of you have come across trace down before. Have any of you used it before? It's marvellous stuff, marvellous stuff. It's like old-fashioned carbon paper, if any of you ever encountered carbon paper, but it's graphite on the back, which makes it very easy to erase. So what you need to do is you need to put it dark side down, and that's the important part, and you can just slip it under. Just slip it right under your line drawing. And it won't need sticking down or anything like that. The way that you've hinged your line drawing on the top will hold it down there, I promise, because you do need to check. So yes, just make sure, I no wish to patronise anybody in the room, but make sure it's dark side down. Otherwise, you'll be very disappointed when you lift up your drawing after doing a lot of work. Now, there are lots of ways that you can transfer your drawing onto your watercolour paper. This is my preferred method, and this is a method I use all the time, which is to use a biro to go back over the lines. So what effectively you're going to do is you're going to draw over all the lines that I have put down so that you've got a nice, instantly recognisable window onto your watercolour paper. I've also, you may notice, broken up those lines with dots and dashes. And may I suggest that you do the same. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time, but that's fine. We've got plenty of time this morning. The other thing that I would strongly recommend is that you do a few lines and then just lift up both the drawing and the trace down just to make sure that it is going through, because sometimes you might find that you need to press a little bit harder than you think. And also it checks whether you've got it dark side down. And then if you haven't, then you can switch it over and no one will ever know. I've not done it yet, but there's always a first time. So I am just paying attention and I'm trying to work very methodically from the outside in. Now, I thought there's all sorts of things that you can choose to do in a workshop, but I thought we'd give ourselves a challenge today, doing a piece of architecture. Because architecture is not the simplest of subjects, but we're doing old architecture, so we tend to get away with murder. And don't worry if your lines aren't perfectly straight. We call that character in stonework. So I'm just making my way around. Don't panic, don't rush. We have plenty of time for this. And if at any time you get lost, just lift up your line drawing and you can see where you've been and where you haven't been, because sometimes you get halfway around and you think, have I drawn that line? So I'm doing all the tricky ones first, which are all the outside ones. And I'm not worrying about whether they're terribly straight or not. This is something that you can try again when you've mastered some of the techniques. So I am just working on the bits of architecture. I have no idea what bits of architecture are called, so let's call it the triangles in the corner. I'm sure it has a terribly technical name. We're doing this one. Yeah, if you can see it better with a pencil, then do it with a pencil. I just struggled to press hard enough with a pencil myself. But that's what art is all about, isn't it? It's finding a technique that suits you and then sticking with it. So I'm looking at these kind of trefoil shapes in the corner and working my way up and around. Now, when you get to it, you will notice that I haven't put all of the panes of glass in for lots of reasons today, but one of them being that life's a little bit too short to be doing every single pane of glass. And today we are going for impressionistic church window, not architectural rendering. So working my way around, this is when the room goes very quiet because everyone's concentrating. And if I wasn't being streamed live, I'd probably be sticking my tongue out right now to concentrate. Oh, that's all right then. Thanks, Gary. Gary's saying that we can't see, so... Yes, luckily no close-ups of me today. So, working my way down the middle. I'm rushing a little bit because I'm trying to get ahead of you, but you take as much time as you need. I would much rather that you are happy with your drawing before we start chucking brusho at it. Because actually, if you've got a nice accurate line drawing, then by the time you throw brusho at it, no matter what pattern the brusho makes, it's not going to matter because you've got that lovely accurate drawing underneath. Okay, we'll skim over the hysterical laughter in the room. It will be accurate. You'll be fine. That's all right. Mine's wobbly as well. Hey, it's a really old window. The more wobbly it is, the more it ages. So, we've only got 90 minutes today to do this in. But of course, just because you do something once does not mean that you can't do it again. So you can have a go at the techniques and then you can tailor them to suit your own painting style, because we are going to try all sorts of things today. Now, I've lost my place already. There we go. Oh, that's fine. I know where I am now. Working my way on the right-hand side. And again, I know it seems like an awful lot of drawing, but I promise it's worth it. Stick with it. Has anyone in the room had a go at drawing architecture before? So new to architecture, and a lot of you are new to Brusho today. And if you're painting along at home, let us know where you are, won't you? Let us know where you're painting from or where you're watching from. It's always good to know. So I think I've done most of the top of both windows now, and it's not looking too shabby underneath. Not too shabby at all. So I've just got the last few bits to do, and then we'll be good to go. And as soon as I've done mine, I can come round and help you if you've got any issues at all. So the tops of both of them, and then let's work down the sides. So this window, this very window, can be found at the Holy Trinity Church in my home village of Stowpane in Dorset. And it is a very beautiful church, even though I say so myself, and has really a lot of very interesting little bits of architecture around it. Very beautiful churchyard as well, and it's got a lovely lich gate with a lamp over the top of it. It's got very old gravestones in it, so all of the elements of it I have painted quite a lot. I do like a bit of old stonework. So we're almost there. I think I've just got the panes left to do. Yes, I have. So we're just going to pop those in. And you will see on the original painting that I did put every last pane of glass in, but we're going to do impressionistic glass today. Particularly because if you've not had a go at architecture before, then every pane of glass can be terribly daunting. So we're just going to do essence of leaded glass. And also because you can get away with murder then. No one is going to question how many panes of glass there were in the window. So I think I've done the left-hand side, yes. And just completing the right-hand side now. So a few more lines, dots and dashes. Hopefully you get a nice surprise when you lift your trace down up. You will get a nice surprise when you lift your trace down up. It's fine, don't worry, you're going to get the chance to edit it quite a lot. So, last few lines for me. Just a few to pop in, and then I can come and give you advice wherever you need it. Don't forget, if you need any advice at home, we can answer any questions at all for you. So when you think that you have done it and it's all down, just be very careful that you double check that you've got it all down, because it's quite tricky to line up again. You can peel off the line drawing, peel off the trace down, and there's my line drawing. So mine's up on the screen for you now. Admittedly, I have drawn it quite a few times, so I am used to it. How's it looking underneath? Is it all right? Excellent. Marvellous. That's a nice, neat and tidy job. This is good. Fab. Oh, you're all doing a great job. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. You're all very quiet. That's it. Lovely. All good, yeah, you're almost done, aren't you? That's it. How's it going? Ah, look at that. Brilliant. Marvellous. Yeah, so you can peel that off, and then I'll show you a couple of techniques for cleaning it up and tidying it up in a minute. So that's it. There we go. And you've got that one to use as reference too, all right? How's it looking? Is it looking all right? Perfect. Perfect. There we go, looking good. How's it looking? Excellent, there we go. Always needs a drum roll, doesn't it? Kind of need a ta-da when you peel it off. Great. Oh, you're all almost there. Brilliant. That's what we like to see. So as soon as you're done, if you peel it off, and then I know who's ready to go to the next phase and who needs a little bit more time. If you have finished, there are two things you're going to need next. You're going to need an eraser, which was one of the things I forgot to check that you had, but I'm looking around the room, I can see that you've got one. Just need an eraser. And you're going to need the grey sketching pen. Those are the two things you're going to need next. That's it. I know some of you at home are drawing along. Let us know how you're getting on. If you wanted to make this, if you wanted to have another go at this and you wanted to make it a lot more accurate, obviously you could take more time. I'm pushing you a little bit today so that we can get to the good bit. But you could maybe use a ruler as well for doing some of the lines. I know sometimes a lot of people think that using a ruler is cheating. That's rubbish. How do you think architects draw? Just depends. Sometimes I like using a ruler for some of the lines and then doing it freehand for others. That's it. How's it looking? Is it all right? There we go. You're done. You can peel that one off then. Yeah, yeah. You are going to need your eraser and you're going to need the Derwent grey sketching pen next. And I'll tell you what to do with those in just a second. Oh, sorry. No, it's all right. There we go. Lovely. That's a good start, isn't it? If you can see what it is, that's a good start. If it looks like a chicken, be worried. You know. If it looks somewhere in the vicinity of a church window, we'll take that as an A+. Lovely. So don't do anything just yet. Don't worry about what to do with the grey pen or any of those things at the moment, because I'm just going to show you a couple of techniques for how to use the grey pen. We just need to do a little bit of cleaning up first. Okay, how are we doing? Those people who are still drawing, are you okay for me to just carry on talking for the time being? So somewhere on your table you should find a plastic eraser. A very unglamorous little tool, but probably one of the most useful things in your arsenal of stuff. Now, one of the disadvantages of using trace down is if you have lent on it very heavily, then you will find that you've got scuff marks. But trace down is brilliant because it's made of graphite, you can erase it. So using the plastic eraser, which will erase cleanly and not smudge it, you can just go back around your drawing and just clean up those little areas where you've got a scuff mark or where you overshot it a little bit with your trace down, or if you've got a line that you think, ooh, that's a little bit wobbly, then you can take it out and put it back in with a pencil. Alternatively, you can throw your line drawing on the floor. Any of that kind of thing. I don't need the trace down again either. You're not going to need your line drawing or your trace down again. So you can tuck those underneath your drawing board if that gets them out the way. That's it. And then, yeah, just give it a bit of a clean up. And then hopefully you should have a nice, crisp, clean pencil drawing down on your watercolour paper. And that is a stress-free church window. So you haven't had to worry about the measuring of it or all that sort of stuff. I did all that for you. And now we can get to the good bit, which is the drawing it in, the painting it in, and all of those kind of things. So one of my favourite tools is this pen, the Graphic Line Maker, which is made by Derwent. And one of the reasons that I particularly like this is because it's grey, and very few waterproof pens come in grey, which means that you can sketch with it, shade with it, do all sorts of things with it, and it looks more like pencil and less like a very hard line. So for those of you who've done a bit of pen and wash in the room, have you noticed that usually you have a choice between black or brown, don't you? And they're not all, those aren't always colours that fit your subject matter, are they? You sometimes want something a little bit softer, and this is the perfect pen. Now, because we're dealing with architecture today, if you look at the colour version of it, okay, we could have used brown for it, but brown would be quite all over it would be quite a departure, wouldn't it? And black, apart from where the panes in the glass are, black around the architecture would be far too hard, wouldn't it? So I'm going to use the grey pen, and I'm going to effectively go back over my pencil lines, which means that if I've made a bit of a boo-boo and they're not quite in the right place, now is the time to edit them. This pen is going to stay where you put it. So only put it down where you want it to show, and it's going to give you the structure underneath your watercolour and brusho and all the other things that we're going to chuck at this in a little while. Now, for some reason, and I don't know why, I seem to be much more accurate with a sketching pen in my hand than I do with a biro or a pencil in my hand. I think it's just the finality of the fact that I know I can't change any of this. And I tend to be faster as well. I don't know what that's all about. I think these Derwent pens glide so beautifully across the surface of the paper. They don't hit it, they don't kind of catch in the surface, and it means you can get beautiful clean lines. So all I'm doing is going back over my pencil lines to make sure that they're exactly where I want them. And then no matter what happens with the brusho or the watercolour, or any of the other things that we're going to chuck at this picture this morning, those pen lines are there. And it's like doing a little bit of underpainting, really, doing a little bit of preparatory work so that you can embrace how unpredictable the brusho is, she said, leading everyone into it very slowly. So again, in the same places, with that same broken line. Now, one of the reasons that I like using a broken line, so that whole dot dash thing, which is why I've put it on your line drawings, is so that if my paint goes beyond that line, if there's a break in it, it doesn't look like a mistake. It looks deliberate. If I've done a very solid line all the way around everything, and for some reason the brusho's gone over the edge, or I've had a bit of an unsteady hand and that's gone over the edge, it means that it is meant to look like that, not a mistake. So I break those lines up, and then I don't have to worry about it. Right. Also, it should, using the grey pen should make your drawing start to really pop off the page. If you didn't press particularly hard when you were doing the trace down part of it, this is where you can make the lines nice and solid, and they will really show up on your surface. So, you all right? Oh, I shouldn't worry about it being very straight. It is an old church. It's all good. And usually if somebody says to you, those lines aren't very straight, you say, well, you try them then. Because I would surmise that anybody who looks at a drawing and starts to pass judgment on the strength and quality of your lines has never had a go at it themselves. And like I said, when you get home, you can have another go at this, can't you? And use a ruler and do it in a lot more time without me yakking in your ear, which I'm very good at. So I'm working my way all the way around exactly like I did before, looking at those lovely patterns that occur in the glass. And I know that I'm going to have to do very little to the drawing part of it once this is done. A little bit of preparation goes a very long way in painting, doesn't it? I know I'm not a particularly enthusiastic drawer. I usually do the minimum amount of drawing required. There are lots of artists out there whose drawing work is very beautiful, but I have to say I always want to get to the painting part of it. So anything I can do to minimise that impact is a good thing for me. So, working my way round. This is the last time you'll draw it, I promise. You'll be sick of church windows by the time We're done. Putting in that leading. Putting in the stripes. Have I done that line? I don't think I've done that line. There we go. I did press quite hard on mine. That's better. And let's come down the right-hand side of it. All the way down. And I mustn't neglect the bottom of my church window either. Put those lines across. Don't forget, you in the room can, and you at home can turn your piece of paper to get a better angle. If I start turning mine around, that's when I look at Gary's face, who's desperately trying to move a camera accordingly, so I'm doing a bit of standing on my head.
I think you're blind at some point when you're doing it, when it stays in one position, and you need to turn it around so that you can see where you're actually drawing.
Yes, that's a very, very good point. We were saying that actually moving your paper around is much more beneficial to your drawing. And actually, if you are right-handed, you will find that the left-hand side of everything is easier to draw. So keep everything on the left. So turn your paper 180 degrees. I did notice one of the gentlemen at the back was doing just that when they were, when you were drawing yours out, weren't you? You kind of turned it 180 degrees and then it's a little bit easier. But yes, it's that funny thing, isn't it, of having a piece of paper clamped to your drawing board and being under the false assumption that it has to just stay there. But no, navigate your way around it. Whatever makes it easier to do. So we're almost there. Now, when we get to the end of the grey lines, just give it a little bit of time to dry on the surface, because this is an ink. Just give it a little bit of time to go off. And then if there's any part of it that you think the pencil underneath looks a bit unsightly, then just take your plastic eraser to it and give it a bit of an edit. But if you're not bothered about it and you think actually it looks fine, then don't worry. But sometimes I know I've had a dodgy moment with the pencil and I've neatened it up with the pen, and actually I could just do with rubbing it out and making it look better. Just make sure that you give your pen just a few moments to dry so that you don't smudge it. So these last few panes of glass, the payoff just before we get to the good bit. And no, don't be daft. It's all right, you've got a spare one there. There we go. Right, just the last few. And then I'll come and have a look and see how you're all doing. Is it looking better with the pen over the top of it? Kind of able to neaten it up a little bit? So just a little bit more, a few more lines. And we'll be good to go. And then we get to the sprinkling, the best bit. That's it, I can hear some editing going on in the room, people doing a little bit of erasing. I'll just wait for my pen to go off. So you can probably see on the screen as well that it's that little bit bolder, brighter, and a little bit more solid. So let's have a look. Let's have a look. Oh, that's lovely. There we go. So much better. Very, very good. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, these are all looking marvellous. Excellent. Very good. Really good. Really, really good. Yeah, that's lovely. It's not a mess at all. Not a mess at all. By the time you've sprinkled it with Brusho, your lines will all disappear anyway. Excellent. How are we doing? How are we doing over here? Lovely. There we go. Fab. Okay.
All right.
Always happens.
Does it?
Yeah. Will the plastic eraser take that out? If you just, I think that's just a scuff mark from the trace down. Yes, yeah. You should find that just by popping that eraser over the top, sometimes it's better to dust it away with a piece of kitchen roll, actually, rather than your hand. Yeah, it's especially when your hands get hot. Just, there we go. There we go. That's better, isn't it? Much cleaner. Fabulous. That's good. Lovely. Oh, you are speedy at the back. That's great. Yeah, any of those little scuff marks at the bottom, your eraser will take those out. How are we doing over in the corner? Excellent. Yeah, you can take your line drawing away. You can peel your... That's it. You can unpeel that now. I doubt that you'll need it anymore. That will be okay. If you want to just peel that one off. All right. And then you'll be left with a nice fresh piece of watercolour paper. That's it. Excellent. Excellent. Right, so we're nearly there. We're nearly on to the good bit. What we're going to need next. We're going to need that, and that. So, how are we doing? Almost there? Okay, those of you who are still drawing, if you don't mind if I just carry on, because I just need to talk a little bit about Brusho. Today we're going to be using the Brusho for that lovely textured effect that we've got in the stonework. And the other thing I'm going to introduce to you today is that you don't necessarily have to paint something the colours that it looks in the photograph. We get very stuck with a photograph, don't we, that we must replicate those colours and it must look like this. Well, I'm going to throw a few new things into the mix for you today because I thought, what a great opportunity to share with you some of my favourite colours. So we're going to use cobalt violet in watercolour, and for the stonework we're going to use two colours in the Brusho. We're going to use cobalt blue and dark brown, but I thought I'd give you just a very quick overview of how to sprinkle Brusho onto a piece of paper. So you have two pots of Brusho in front of you. They're shared between pairs of you. May I suggest that you are fairly careful when you pop the lids off them? Okay, so just kind of don't do it with a flourish because you will end up Brushoed yourself. It does stain, so if you get it on your clothes will now be Brushoed. If you get it on you, a decent bath tonight will get rid of it. And it just goes to show that you've worked really hard. That's effectively what it will do. Now, if ever there was an adage of less is more, and I'm sure you've heard it a lot in painting terms, less is more, don't put too much on the paper, all of those kind of things, it's Brusho. So here's my plain piece of paper, and the way that I put Brusho onto the paper is that I take a dry brush, so this is your old brush, and I'll just demonstrate it if you don't mind before we put it on the paintings. I pop it into the pot of Brusho, so that I've just got a few granules on the top, and then I sprinkle it onto the surface. Now, can you see it? No, which means it's about right. If you can't see it, or you're struggling to see it on the surface, then I would say that that's about the right amount, and you'll see why in a second. So I've put a little bit of blue down, and a little bit of brown down. Can you still not see that on the thing? Right, you watch. The minute that the spray bottle attacks it, look how much colour you get. So just imagine if you put loads of powder down and you could see it all over the surface. Just be a little careful. Now, we're going to do this in quite a specific way. And if I may demonstrate it first, and then you can have a go at it. What I've done is I have torn a piece of kitchen roll vaguely to the size of my church window. And I'm going to use that like a mask, okay? Just so that when you come to do the architecture, it's not interfering with it. We're just concerned with the outside of it at the moment. I'm going to take my number 10 silver brush and I'm going to mix up a little thin wash of the cobalt violet. Cobalt violet, one of my favourite colours. You'll see it in pretty much everything I paint or variations on a theme because I think it's a fabulous colour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the spray bottle. I might just have to hold the kitchen paper down, but I'm going to make sure that my piece of watercolour paper is nice and wet. I'm just having a few issues with this spray bottle today because it's going out live. Of course I'm having issues with my spray bottle. So I'm going to put plenty of water down on the surface, and then into that I'm just going to drop a little bit of cobalt violet here and there, just to suggest the area of brickwork or stonework outside of the window. I'm going to make it very sloppy. You cannot paint too wet, particularly with the style of painting that I do. So I'm just popping some of the cobalt violet around, and then into that, in just a second, I'm going to drop the brusho. Now, do you remember the whole less is more thing? And because it's quite warm in here as well today, you are going to have to paint quite fast. So all sorts of challenges being thrown at you today. So I'm dropping that colour in. You can use a bit of kitchen roll just to take the edge off of that vignette if you want to. And then here goes with my brusho. So that surface is wet. I've put a tiny bit of brusho onto my brush, and from very high up, I'm just sprinkling it on. So can you see just here and there, I've got an odd bit of texture. So I don't need a lot, particularly the cobalt blue is very bright. So I'm just popping a little bit of brown in, and I'm not doing it all over. It's very tempting to do it all over, but then can you see, when I take the kitchen roll away, I've got a nice texture surrounding my window. Now I can go back in, if I want to just blend any of that out, and I can use my kitchen roll to blot it off the surface. Now, if you get the brusho in the wrong place, there is a certain amount of having to live with it, unfortunately, because brusho does stain, but you can lessen the blow with a magic sponge, and we can talk more about that later if we have time. But I'm just taking a wet brush around and about just to make that texture move a little bit further. Now, if this is your first time with brusho today, whether you're in the room or painting at home, don't be too hard on yourselves, because it is a tricky little product, but one that can provide hours of fun creating textures and making things look a little bit more interesting. So we tore the kitchen roll to the shape of the window, we lay that down, we sprayed it with water to make it wet all the way around, we dropped in the cobalt violet with the number 10 brush, and then we sprinkled a tiny bit of brusho into it. So have a go and see how you get on. If you're getting hard lines with your watercolour, your paper isn't wet enough. So you need to be generous with the spraying. Summing it up. So you've got your kitchen roll. You'll need a little bit of kitchen roll at the bottom as well. Spray it all the way around with water. Spray around the kitchen roll. Spray your paper around the kitchen roll. Don't worry about the kitchen roll. It will be fine and look after itself. And then drop in some of the cobalt violet. Drop in some of that colour just there. And you'll need your number 10 brush for the wash. And then just drop in a little bit of brusho and see what happens. So when you are using watercolour and brusho, no, just the cobalt violet, yes. Number 10, that's it. So when you're using watercolour and brusho, you cannot paint too wet. It's not possible. So if anything, make it wetter than you anticipate. Your colour should be running on your paper plate. It should be wildly out of control. And if you're hyperventilating ever so slightly, it's about right. So that's it. I'm just going to hijack this for you because it's surprising, actually, and particularly because it's quite warm in here, how wet it needs to be. There we go. If it is running down the page, that's a good sign. And then just tap a tiny bit of Brusho in, just a tiny bit of Brusho, dry. Tap it in from up above so that it sprinkles onto the surface. Yes, yeah. That's it. You all right? Okay. That's it. So let's just do that way. There we go. Ooh, bless you. Spray it all the way round. May I? You have to make it very, 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 very wet. So now a bit of the cobalt violet in. That's it. Have you got yourself in a pickle? Let's unpickle you. That's all right. So where's your... Let's just take that back ever so slightly, if we can. It's all right. It won't matter. And then let's really go to town on your water. So it's this colour with this brush. And you've got a bit of Brusho on there already, so most of your texture's done, to be honest. So that brush with that colour. All right? And then just pop it around the edge. There we go. So make it really, really wet so that it's running. Really soggy. I know nobody... Don't worry. Don't worry. I know nobody believes me when I say paint wet, but paint wet. That's it. May I? Now don't worry. There we go. It's literally got to be running. There we go. Yeah, that'd be lovely. And then, where's your palette gone? There we go, there it is. So that brush, that colour, yeah. And that colour. Yeah, shove it in. There we go. That's basically my ethos of painting. Shove it in, shove it on.
So, I've gone a bit too mad, I think.
No, it's all good. That's it. And now just with that little brush, that's it. Yeah, whack it on. Yeah, so really runny. Really runny. That's it. That's it, lovely. Good stuff. Get it on. That's it, bit more water. That's it, so a little bit thinner version of it. So there we go, take just that little bit. Oh, that's it. Marvellous. There we go, so you sprinkled your Brusho on. That's the one, yeah. Both, either. Whatever takes your fancy. You all right? We've developed hysterics in the room, effectively, everyone at home. We've tipped over the edge. That's what Brusho will do for you. You can't say Brusho's not exciting. That one. Yes. That's it. That's it. It's all right. It's all good. Don't worry. Don't worry. Try not to put too much Brusho on. I know it's very tempting to go, ooh, I'll just. That's all right. Foliage. It's all good. Yes. You can do if you want. I quite like yours actually, so I'd leave well alone. Yep, that's it. And then take your piece of kitchen roll away and just dispose of it so that you can see the beautifully revealed window underneath. It's a funny thing, the number of times I've taught brush show and the number of times I've said less is more. And if you take anything away from today, that's the thing to take away from today. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use brush show in a different way, which is to use it like an ink, because it is a powdered ink effectively. So what I would like you to do is to just take a little bit of the cobalt blue brush show and just pop it onto your palette somewhere, just a small amount. You can transfer it by the brush. I don't know if you can see it on mine, but it's that little area up there. And you will need your number 6 silver brush for this. And you need to mix a lot of water with it. In fact, I haven't even used all of the powder that I've deposited. I've just used a little bit, so you've got that lovely, strong colour. And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick out some of the window panes. So you are not painting between the lines. You're leaving those white. So you're doing a bit of negative painting. Do you understand? So if we had lots and lots and lots of time, we'd probably use masking fluid to mask them out. But the bits that go between the lines, you're leaving as white paper. So for example, let me show you on this one because it's nice and clear. So I've used my number 6 brush and I've made the brush show into an ink. So can you see I've just filled in that little diamond and I've left the spaces either side of it to describe the leading of the window. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick the odd one here and there. Not going to do all of them. It's just a suggestion. Essence of window. If you've got any queries, then scream. And what will have happened is that your kitchen roll will have kept your window nice and dry so that you can work back into it without having to worry about it. So I don't know if you can see on mine, I'm just putting a tiny bit of colour in and using the water to blend that out. It doesn't have to be fantastically perfect. You're just suggesting those window panes. And I can do that on the other side too. So a little bit more going in. And it's just to say that the window is reflecting the sky. In the photograph, in the colour version of it, you could do these darker if you wanted to. And I'm going to put some of the blue up into those top areas too. So up into those little trefoil shapes up at the top. But I'm still leaving the gaps in between. It is an interesting, for those of you at home, there's quite a discussion in the room about the amount of water that you're using with the brush show. And I think the conclusion that everybody is coming to is that you need to take more water with it. So just popping in the blue here and there, as if to say that it's reflecting the sky. Right, there's mine, with just that little bit of blue in, just that hint of blue. Lots of water, that's it, you've got it. Yes, so have you, lovely. try to paint wetter if you can. Allow it to flow, because actually it's sort of, you've done your brush really beautifully actually. If you kind of just let it flow beyond diamond shapes as well, you get that essence of window pane. That's it, that's lovely. Very subtle. See, it is possible with brush. I know no one ever believes me. Lovely, that's it. All right? Yeah, lovely. Yeah, this is good. Lovely. Very good, that's nice, like that. Yeah, you've got it nice and soft as well. Very good. Oh, I like the variation between the strong and the not so strong. That's good. There we go. Marvellous. That's it. Sorry, I'll get out of your way. Lovely. That's all right. We'll take care of that in the shadows. Lovely. There you go. You all right? It's all right. If it's your first go brusher. It's surprising how little you need with it. Yeah. It's powerful stuff, isn't it? It's powerful stuff. It's the understatement of the year, really. But yeah. Yeah, it does. Don't you dare apologise. Because for everybody that's painting very strong, there'll be somebody else in the room who's painting really pale going, I wish I could paint strong. However you paint, you want to paint like somebody else, don't you? There's lots of people I want to paint like. That's lovely. That's lovely. Look at that. Lovely essence of window pane. Marvellous. Marvellous. There we go. Nice expressive marks. I like those. Good stuff. Lovely. Very good. Well, that's all right. It's a stormy sky outside. There we go. Lovely. Oh, you're getting to grips with it a bit more now. I know you don't think you are, but you are. That's better. So we're feeling slightly less hysterical about it now. Good. So let's have a look at what we need to do next. So I'm just going to give you a couple more minutes just to get that blue in, because also it's very good to be given a bit of a time limit with things like this. Otherwise, you poke them about, or as we say down in deepest, darkest Dorset, you faff about with them. I think the term to faff about is pretty universal. I taught in Spain the week before last, and we talked about faffing in Spanish as well. It was marvellous. Can't remember what it was in Spanish now, but they all knew what I meant. So literally the few dying seconds of us doing the blue, so get it in as quickly as you can, and then say to yourselves, I'm done with that now. So after saying to you all to keep your white nice and fresh and clean, I've just noticed that I've got cobalt violet in mine. It's always a do as I say, not as I do type scenario. Loose church window. Don't worry. As human beings, we are complete control freaks, aren't we? And we like everything to be terribly ordered. And unfortunately, art requires you to let go of that a little bit. You need order and you need chaos. I just seem to be very good at the chaos part of it. Destined to be an artist. Right, let's move on to the next bit, shall we? Hopefully at home you're still with us and you're still painting along. We need to start addressing the shadows in the architecture, because it's the shadows in the architecture that are going to make your window pop. Now, if you have had an incident with the brush show, and we'll call it an incident, you may need your shadows to be darker than the ones that I'm going to mix up, okay? I'm going to use a combination of, exactly as we have been doing really, I've put a little bit of the dark brown brush show powder onto my palette, which I'm going to make up into an ink. It's a lovely rich brown. But I'm also going to use that transparent grey, which we have squeezed out onto our palettes too. And I'm going to look at, in the architecture, where the shadows lie. So, for example, let's move that into shot so that everyone at home can see it too. So can you see, particularly on the left-hand side of that window recess, there's a very dark shadow underneath. So I'm going to start with some of the brown brusho, which is not easy to say. Actually, I need it to be a little bit darker than that. And I'm going to pop in that shadow shape, use a little bit of water to blend that out into nothing, so that it just comes down the edge of the window. And I'm also going to use the transparent grey watercolour while that's wet to pop in to get a nice wet into wet effect. Now, these silver brushes are some of my favourite brushes simply because they come to the most amazing point. Then can you see that window now starts to look recessed? It pushes back. So what you're going to do is make your way around all the parts of your architecture which you know need a shadow, and your photo reference will show you where those need to be. So I'm working on the one on the left-hand side now. Now this is where photo reference really works. I know that an awful lot of the time working from photographs is seen as not particularly the done thing, but when you're working with a static object like this, working from a photograph is really good because you can see where everything is, one snapshot in time. And one of the disadvantages of working on plein air, of course, is that things move, colour moves, shadows move, and it's very difficult to see, particularly if you're a beginner. So keep your paint really wet, keep it moving, drop it in, use the point of that beautiful brush for accuracy, and blend the colour out so that it goes where you want it to. And then you can just keep making your way around your picture. You can even load your brush up with a little bit of brown brusho on your brush, and then just tip the tip of it into the transparent grey. And then when you pop it down onto the surface, you'll get the best of both colours. So I'm going to use plenty of water to blend that out. You can use your kitchen roll as well, just to dab out any areas that you think are too strong. You can use your magic sponge too, if you need to lighten any areas. So I'm going to work on this area on the right. I'll come and have a look in just 1 second. I'll abandon mine a little bit. That's it. So you've got shadows in. That's it. You got it. Lovely. Yeah, right in the right place. That's nice. Ooh, I like your window. No, I like this. Yeah, I like that. Happy accident. We like those. That's it. Make sure you continue to use plenty of water. Don't be mean with the water now just because you're working in a small area. It is the grey, yes. That's the one, yes. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, if you want a darker shadow, you can do. That's it, lots of water, you've got it. That's it. Yeah, lovely shadows, nice and deep. There we go. You could actually pull this around with the depth of your shadows, because where you've gone for really dark, which is a splendid decision, actually they could be as strong as your brusher around the edge, and actually sometimes what looks like a mess can be brought together. That's lovely blending out. Very good. Very good. Nice deep dark shadows. Yeah, there we go. Be brave. So easy to say and not so easy to do. Yeah, lovely. You could be a little bit braver with your shadows. It's probably not what you wanted to hear. It doesn't matter, doesn't matter. With the grey, yes, you've been very brave with yours. Very good brush-o. Very good brush-o. Excellent. There we go. Marvellous. You're having fun with yours, aren't you?
Yeah.
Good. Really good. How are we doing this end? How are we doing over here? That's it, lovely and soft. Like those. Yeah, nice expressive marks we've got going on. This is good. Fab, fab, fab. Right, let's do a bit more to mine. Where else do I need my shadows to go? I need my shadows to be in that top section as well. So let's pop those in. So putting the one over the top, in there. And I'm using plenty of water to blend that out. As always with watercolour and associated media, speed is of the essence. And let's face it, what you're doing today is trying this stuff out. Now, if you are painting along at home, we'd love to see how you're getting on, because you've got a much bigger luxury than these poor people sitting in front of me of sitting in your own four walls, being able to carry on with your window project. But do share them, won't you? Because so often I get to teach people, but I don't get to see what they do. Let's blend all that out in the top right-hand corner. I think mine need to be a bit darker as well, actually. Let's pop some darker shadows in there. That's better. And then hopefully using the brown brush-o and the grey watercolour means that you get a nice variation in tone as well. So let's put that along the top. Ooh, I've got a bit of a cauliflower going on there. Let's get rid of that. Can't have cauliflowers in our architecture. So I'm going to give you about 5 more minutes to get some of the shadows in, because I want to share a lovely little cheating technique with you, which you'll love, I promise. I promise. I know none of you believe me anymore. Now, I was going to say at this point that you could sprinkle some more brush-o on if you wanted. No? Once you get a bit more confident with brush-o, if you haven't used it before, you'll find that you end up, actually the act of sprinkling it on is probably the most fun you can have, and you'll use it more than you realise. It's such a great product for anything that's got texture written all over it. So I use it an awful lot in my animal portraits, for things like the centres of flowers, all of that kind of stuff, because it's a lovely instant hit of colour. Oh, and I need to do something about this bottom windowsill down here. So let's mix up a bit more brown. And let's put that, I'm going to give it a nice dark shadow down there. Just using lots of water all the time to blend out. Blending, lots of blending. So popping that in, and actually that's all I'm going to do to mine, especially because I know what's coming. So a couple more minutes just to play with that technique, because of course don't forget that you guys here have got all day sitting where you're sitting. So whilst I'm doing my demonstration this afternoon, you can still be playing with your church window. I won't take offence at all. And don't forget that if you're watching at home, around about 1:45 this afternoon, I'm going to be doing a demonstration of a cow portrait. And there was an ooh that went up in the room. I'm going to be using collage materials and watercolour ground, and I'm going to be sharing with some of my favourite techniques with you this afternoon. So hopefully you can pop back then. Yes, you'll be in the room. Joe was just asking how you can view this afternoon's demonstration. Those people in the room are going to get to see me do it live. You can watch live at home, and of course you might also be watching this on catch-up as well. So what you can do after today, if you fancied having another go at the project, of course you can go home, access the SAA's website, and you can watch the whole workshop back again. So you get to hear me say all this stuff twice. You lucky, lucky people. The cow demonstration, yes, you'll be able to watch back, but you'll be watching it this afternoon. Yes, you'll be sitting right where you are now watching it. So just put your last few shadows in. Don't worry if you haven't got them all yet. I just want to show you a technique with part of the equipment we've not talked about yet. How are we doing? Are those shadows a bit more manageable? Are you feeling a bit more comfortable with those? Oh, there's some, you can't see at home, there's some screwed up noses in the room. I am pushing you on with it today. There's lots of oohs and rats and lots of more expletives which I can't possibly repeat. Okay, may I just distract you temporarily to a technique I'm going to share with you based around this lovely thing, the Stabilo pen. I don't know if any of you have come across these before. So they're lovely sketching pens. They're very smooth, but I don't know if you knew, but they're also water soluble. So it means that you can draw with them, sketch with them. Again, they're very lovely on this SAA practice paper because they glide across the surface. So you can see there that you can do a little sketch with them. Now you can spray them if you want to, and I don't know if you can see from there, but they run, so they fracture on the paper, which is a nice technique for any of your natural forms. But what we're going to use them for today is we're going to go back into our architecture on the inside of some of our lines to draw with, a bit like we were using the grey pen earlier. But if you draw with it and then you take a wet brush to the inside of that line, can you see how it just pulls enough of the colour out to make a shadow? But what it does mean is if there's any areas of your painting that you think, oh, do you know what, that needs a bit more of an oomph, that needs beefing up a little bit, I can go back in. So for example, I've got this part of the archway on the right-hand side, which I can then take a wet brush to the inside of that line, and it just fuzzes it out enough to make it stronger. Can you see that on the screen? You can then, all those little bits of architecture, all those lovely fine lines that you've put in, a little bit like a watercolour pencil, can you see then how you start to bring them out? Now, you can do it one of two ways. You can do all of the drawing and then wet it all. The danger with that is if you let it dry too much, you might not be able to move it as far. So I like to do a little manageable bit at a time. And then can you see how that architecture starts to come to life and starts to become a bit more 3D? And it is the most marvellous technique just for finishing off areas. Now, if there are any areas of your painting that you think, oh, I wish I hadn't painted that dark, that's what your gouache is for. So if, for example, you've painted over a line and you wish you hadn't, a little bit of the white gouache over the top will just bring that area back again. It's like Tipex, marvellous stuff, white gouache for watercolourists. Just to bring that, so you can start now to play about with your architecture, filling in the shadows, using the pen if you don't think it's dark enough, popping a bit more watercolour back in. This is the point, it's the hardest element of painting to teach because everybody's going to have different requirements. But this is the point where you can make the painting your own. And what I will do is I'm going to come around, I'm going to help each one of you in the room so that you're not just watching me paint, you can be working on your own pieces. And I'll see where I can help. So, right, well, let's swap it with mine. There you go. Is it still wet? Because that might be the thing.
Just won't.
Just won't. Okay, let's get rid of that for you. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Just kind of lifts it a little bit, doesn't it? There we go, marvellous. Yeah. You just need a bit more time with yours, really, don't you? You've completely got the techniques, you just...
I'm very slow paper, but I do a lot of fine art.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's really difficult in a workshop scenario. You're working to my speed and the amount of time that we've got together this morning, but that's what a workshop's all about, isn't it? It's about learning the techniques and then taking them home and making them your own. That's lovely. Like that. Yeah, it's really coming to life now. And actually, the bizarre thing about it is that if you didn't have all of that brusher around the edge, it kind of wouldn't make sense, would it? So it is bringing it together. It's lovely. Well done. You were really good with your brusher, got a lovely fine sprinkling of it. Is that, do you usually paint pale? Well, that's just your handwriting. That's just the way it goes. We all want to paint differently, don't we? If you paint muted, you want to paint strong, and if you paint strong, you want to paint muted, and that's just the way it goes. Never satisfied, are we? You don't even have to go back in with the grey pen, although the black pen, although the grey pen is waterproof. Sometimes with a more subtle, let's call it subtle, not muted, sometimes with a more subtle picture, actually going back in with the grey looks nicer. So what you could do is use the grey or really, really water the transparent grey down for your shadows. That's why teaching it is quite tricky, because I paint quite strong, so the black works for me, but mixed media is a marvellous thing and you just make it fit. Lovely dark shadows on yours. Not at all. No, it looks great. It's really popping off the page. And look how your brush has dried back now. No, it's lovely. It's really lovely. The thing is with doing this type of project, I personally would much rather see a painting that's got a bit of pizzazz and a bit of life and is more exciting than something, they're all laughing at me, than something that is terribly accurate. But that's just me. That's lovely, very good use of the pen. Starting to come out now, isn't it? Lovely. How are you getting on? That's lovely.
There's nothing lovely about this. It's horrible, isn't it?
It's not horrible at all.
I'm just playing now.
Well, I'm glad you're playing. My work is done.
I don't know.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, just get a nice, stronger line. Yeah. Yeah, and then you can just pull that colour out. That's it. There we go. You've got it. That's it. Yeah, you can rescue lines. There we go.
Rescue the bottom.
Oh, I shouldn't worry. I shouldn't worry. Ooh, this is a nice, I need to get round the side. I'm just going to, excuse me, I'm going to shimmy this way. There we go. That's working really well for you, actually, isn't it? It's starting to bring it together. It's lovely, really lovely. There we go.
I made a mistake with this because when I took the thing off, there was a gap, so I decided to take a bit in the
Oh, that's all right. That's fine. And that's what mounts are for. These are great. How are we doing? How are we doing over here?
Making a mess.
Good. I'm glad you're making a mess. We do things in such an ordered fashion normally. It's good. Oh, this is coming together now, though. This is coming together. The black pen is pulling the, pulling the architecture together. Oh, that's lovely. That's really good. And isn't it funny how the brusho now starts to sit back the minute that you bring it to life? Yes, you've done really well with yours as well. Now your window's coming forward and your brusho's going back. Ooh, I like this. I do. It's beautiful. Yeah, when you get to the... Okay, what don't you like about the window? Everything. Well, I think as well, when you get the pen, that you'll be able to neaten up parts of it that aren't working for you.
Going round these lines?
Yes, yeah, just where you think they need to be a bit stronger and a bit darker. That's it, exactly like that. Yep, that's great. I would switch to, because that's just a rough brush, I would switch to that silver brush, because you'll find that it's got a nicer point on it, and you'll be able to be more accurate with it. Lovely. This is coming together now. It is. It is. Having an argument over here. That's lovely. Very good pen work. Ooh, you've got a whole stained glass thing going on like that.
She said, very good pen work, but not very good painting.
Oh. It's good. Actually, let's go to the back over here. How are we doing? Oh, the black pen's working well, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Bringing it together. Yeah, and you've got lovely soft edges on your black. That's beautiful. Very good shadows. Very good window panes as well. Like that. I shouldn't worry. I shouldn't worry. Shouldn't worry which are panes and which aren't. That's it. Lovely. How are you getting on with the pen? That looks good. Yeah. Made it nice and rectangular now, hasn't it? Excellent. Oh, yeah, working well for you as well. Nice shadows. Yeah, like the shadow part. Excellent. Oh, nice in the corner. Very good dark shadows. Like those. Oh, we got a whole ethereal window in the corner, in the far corner. Like that. Right, how are we doing for time? Let's do a little bit more of mine. I heard that. You didn't hear that comment. People are surmising that I'm getting paid to be nice. Believe me, if I didn't like it, I'd say. Right, I'm going to do a little bit more to mine. Oh, that's the pen that's not working. Who's got a spare pen? You got that one? I don't want to snaffle it from you. Lovely, thank you very much. Let's do a little bit more to mine. Now, for those people at home, I'm actually going to add a little bit more to mine while these lovely people in the room are still working on their shadows. I'm going to add some more brusho back into mine, just so that you can see how you can put the brusho back into the architecture, because the architecture is looking very white and is looking very different from the architecture that's around the window. So I'm going to pick up the cobalt violet that I had, and I'm going to pop some of it, possibly not that strong, back into the architecture, just as a fine wash over the top. It's another way of getting brusho down. Let's put another bit of it. Now, for brusho to spread, it will only spread in areas that are wet. So if you don't wet a particular area, it will just fall as grains, and then you can dust it off later. So I think, let's go for the brown. So into that tiny little area of cobalt violet that I've got, I'm going to tap a little bit of the brown brusho. Now it's going elsewhere on my picture too, but if it's not a wet area, then you don't have to worry about it. Then I can use my brush just to spread that out a little bit, just to stop the architecture looking quite so bright. There we go, starting to come together now. So working my way up and around. And if an area of it is too dark, I can lift it with the gouache. And if it's too light, I can always work back into it with the pen. And this is a project that can run and run, really. You can try it again at home using variations of the techniques that we've talked about today. I am using, yes, yeah. Joe was just asking what size brush I am using, and it is a number 6 I'm using for this. If you're not very confident with large brushes, then a number 2, if you want to get really fine detail, would be better. But I have to say, I prefer using slightly larger brushes because then I don't faff. I get a number 2 brush in my hand, I know that I'm in grave danger of faffing. And as much as I tell other people for it, I'm very good at it. Oh, do as I say type thing, isn't it? So hopefully that is just giving the architecture a bit more depth. Now, if you decided that the blue panes are actually a bit too pale, you've got your transparent grey there to go back in. You can rework those areas as well if you want to. You could make those really dark. Let's do some work to this top section up here. Just putting a slightly deeper, darker shadow in. Trying to make it look like it's a reflection rather than a solid object. Thank you very much, Gary. Gary is just telling me we have about 5 minutes left. So if you have any questions before we disappear, then do pop us a message. I hope you're all painting furiously at home. We're painting furiously here. So a bit more, and actually let's put some more pen back into that. So that that comes to life a bit more too. And then what we'll do is we'll just have a very quick blast around the room just to see how people are getting on. Yeah, that's coming with a bit more work and a bit more time, that will come together. That's it. There we go. Yeah, what might be interesting with yours actually is to, over lunchtime, really let it dry.
Yeah.
And then you can go back in with the grey or the black or whichever pen you feel the most comfortable with and just tighten those areas up because it's got all the elements there now, hasn't it? It looks like a window, it's got beautiful reflection in it. This is really lovely where you've got the brush show to run. It just needs bringing together, doesn't it? That's fabulous, well done. So beautifully neat. I wish I could paint that neatly. Do you wish you did the other? It's so odd, isn't it? But yeah, that's lovely. I love the way the brown goes into the grey. That's fabulous. It stops it looking like a cardboard cutout then, where you've got variation in tone and colour. That's lovely. Very good brush-o techniques as well. Yeah, that's lovely. Again, nice variation in colour. It looks textural. And your brush-o is now starting to be part and parcel of the whole picture. That's lovely. That's very exciting. Look at that. That's awesome. Very good. You pleased with that? Good, I'm glad, because it's a real triumph, I think. You've done really well with it. Lovely. It's all coming together, isn't it? Very good. Yes, that's working really well for you. I did little bits of that black pen here and there, just where I need it to be stronger or darker or all of those types of things. Yes, rather than sort of going religiously around. No. Otherwise it looks artificial if you do it too regular. So I just used a little bit here and there for it. So yeah, it's very tempting when you've got that pen in your hand, isn't it? To kind of, yes. If you're brave, you can spray it. I'll leave that there for you. That's coming together, isn't it? It is. The thing is as well, 90 minutes is a long time to be drawing, isn't it? The pressure, these are fabulous. It's good. It is. No, you haven't, because you haven't done those bits. It's good. Don't worry. Don't worry. We set ourselves far too high a target, don't we? Have unrealistic expectations of ourselves. As long as you're enjoying the process, that's the point, isn't it? Bit of escapism for 90 minutes. Now, I think that looks better, and I'm not even going to look at your face for you to tell me different. Oh, that's lovely.
Bad news.
That's very good. Hey, it looks like a window and not a chicken. Yeah. Lovely. Very good. What do you normally do? Oh, you don't paint at all? Well, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but that's a very good painting for someone that doesn't paint at all. That's excellent. Well, and well done for being so brave in doing it anyway. Lovely. Ah, yes, using the gouache to very great effect. I like that. Excellent, well done. Very good. Lovely. Awesome. Awesome. So, just to wrap up, has anyone got any questions about anything in the room? Has anyone got any queries? Anybody want me to go over anything again? So, Joe is asking at what point you can use the gouache. Gouache is, like I said, like a Tipex product. So you can go over the top. If you use gouache when your paint underneath is wet, you'll get a pastel version. If you wait until it's completely dry, you can layer the gouache up so that it becomes whiter and whiter. It just depends what effect you want. Yes, yeah. It is a technique that requires a little bit of patience. Any other queries I can answer for anybody? They're all.
Just say a quick note to Joan, who's watching at home, who watches every week and paints along every week. Her materials came a little bit late because she was late ordering them, so she's not watching that. She's watching on catch-up.
Right.
So she'll get this in probably about an hour's time or so. So just say hello to her.
Will do. Hello, Joan. Hopefully by now you've got your materials and you have watched us on catch-up and caught up, and it's a fabulous, fabulous way of doing that. That if you wanted to have another go, or if you wanted anybody in the room who fancies having a go, and certainly being able to draw a bit and then stop it and restart it and kind of do it in your own time. But I'm so happy, Joan, that you've been following along today. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. It's a pleasure to know that there's not only people in the room in front of me, but there's you guys at home watching too. So the one thing I am going to do to these people, which they're not going to love me for, is can you all please hold up your paintings so that the people in the camera behind can see? We'll do it as a group. And then, so hold it up so that everyone can see what we're doing. Come on, people, we can do this. Congratulations, everybody. I threw a huge number of techniques at you today. And don't worry, everyone at home will be thinking exactly the same thing as everyone in the room. Thank you, ladies and gents. Thank you so much to all of you in the room and to all of you tuned in at home for joining me today. If you are watching live, do come back and join us again at 1:45, won't you, when I will be doing a 45-minute demonstration of a cow, hopefully with some character. This lot are going to carry on painting and we're going to carry on helping them out, but everyone at home, I'm going to see you just a little bit later. Bye.